Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Carroll, I see you found your way through what was lurking in the darkness and into the fox den to awaken me from my slumber for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. That was absolutely delicious. I still am very parched, yet it is once again time for Dennis and Starfox to take a walk into the darkness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
Ooh, my creatures of the night, once again, you find your way around the late night fire to burn some timber as we read a few chapters from the Midnight Society book. But wait, yes, Dennis Carroll from our science team and also our occult specialist has just made his way through the dark, dense, and foggy forest to join us as well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine, yes, sir.
Excellent stuff. Always great to sit down and pick your mind and hear what you've been up to. And you have some great stuff for us tonight. But before I throw you the mic, I just love to learn. So I was digging deep into African lore, and they do not have werewolves, but they have were-hyenas, the hyena beast, etc. And what's really interesting about that is there's two different versions. There is one that every couple generations, basically, I guess if you are a successful blacksmith and have done some, I don't know, maybe shady stuff, your child or offspring then is susceptible to being able to become this beast, and you need to use a magic stick that you rub. They don't really solidify what you're rubbing on it, or if anything, but then you also need special ash. But then on the other behalf, they have something that sounds like a dang cynocephaly. It is a hyena that wears hoods and other type of baggy clothing and such, and would act as if they were in need of help or would like to trade with you or lead you off the path. And then at the final second, you realize this is actually some sort of hyena-like hominoid that has lured you to your doom. And you had some interesting stuff tonight to talk about, but I just found the Boda fascinating. And before you dive into what you're diving into, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that real quick.
Okay, well, there are a lot of legends like that in Africa. Very much so. The hyena is looked upon. It is looked upon, sort of venerated in one way, and then scorned in another. There is a thought that perhaps the beast of Govaden may have been someone's pet hyena. Hyenas can be somewhat domesticated. They're still wild, though, and they could be used for purposes, definitely, by some people. And the witch doctors of Africa have been known to transmute people when they want to. They can turn people into different types of things, especially like the hyena and other things. And of course, you have the very prevalent cult of the leopard men in Africa. I'm sure you've heard of that. The leopard men were almost wiped out by the colonial British. They were a very bad, they were sort of very much like a magical mafia type of an organization. They actually ran countries, and they were very influential in what they did, but they actually believed, using herbs and certain plants and stuff, that they could turn into leopards, and they would actually people with these leopard claws that they had. They would wear the skins of leopards. They became, in their mind, leopards, and they were very, very influential in certain parts of Africa, in colonial Africa back in the day. But there are rumors that there are still pockets of cults of leopard men in Africa. And there are certain, from time to time, certain that take place that are thought to be attributed to some of these secret leopard cults that are still active in Africa.
Well, what the heck? That is some creepy stuff right there. And I'm going to add a little bit more creepiness to what we're talking about before you add even a ton of more creepiness. I was reading into a ton of Egyptian lore as well. Well, a lesser known fact is Anubis is based off of the jackal. Anubis and his jackals would consume deceased bodies. But if you were lucky enough or respected enough, you would get his word that your body wouldn't be touched in the afterlife. There is just another very interesting depiction of that, because what is it with anything canine based or hyena based? And the cynocephali were believed to have dog heads, wolf heads, jackal heads, hyenas heads. What the heck? Like, there has to be some sort of correlation, man.
Well, to me, this is very, very interesting study, because mankind has coexisted with one type of canine or another for untold thousands of years. Definitely there is a connection. But when you get to Anubis, Anubis is fascinating. The cult of Anubis, they believed that they could re-inhabit bodies. And so you had sort of like a zombie kind of a connection going on with some of this stuff. And the worshippers of Anubis believed that a body could be re-inhabited by another spirit. And so this was sort of a form of living beyond your years. You could sort of use up one body and then take control of another body. And they believed that these spirits of these certain people, the priests especially of Anubis, would be able to do this. And so it is not only a form of zombification, but it's a form of demonic possession as well. The cult of Anubis was one of the most darkest cults that Egypt ever knew.
I love how you just said that, Dennis, because that's more or less what I wanted to just mention before you start talking about some of the awesome stuff. Is a lot of people think that Anubis was good. I don't know, man. He kind of had that, like you just said right there. I don't know. He leans a little bit more towards the darker side, and people are like, "What do you mean he took your body in the afterlife?" Yeah, if you were one of the special ones, but what did you have to do to have your body not touched in the afterlife? You know, were you doing some shady stuff? I mean, why? Or is Anubis and his jackals consuming flesh? And like you just said, why is Anubis's cult one of the most darkest cults? It seems to me that he wasn't necessarily good or evil, but I don't think he was good either, man.
Well, he was considered really the gateway to the afterlife in some aspects. You could go through that gate in a good way, or you could go through that gate in a bad way. I think he was the personification of that, the bridge that you had to cross over into the afterlife. And there were certain people, certain priests that were not good, and they would utilize certain things to do in sort of the wrong way to do it, but it was the right way for them, they thought. Certain ways that they could manipulate certain forces that were connected to Anubis to do these things. Certain priests were some of these priests were looked upon as almost like wizards, sorcerers to a certain extent. Some of these priests were venerated that way. And then, of course, you had the cult of Bast, the cat-head goddess. She had her own cult, and women were supposedly initiated into this cult. They believed sort of along the same lines that you could re-inhabit bodies if necessary. And this way you could transcend generations. It was almost a different type of immortality that they would get. And one of the things connected to Bast, just like with Anubis, were some of the amulets that they wore. So it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, straight up mind-boggling right there. And again, before I want you to blow some more minds, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious based. You inform me of a ton of things, but that sounds like I don't know where this is from, where they put a feather or something and then your heart and they weigh it. Is that kind of pretty much what you were referring to? Because they didn't seem like they were good or evil either. Like you said, you could go through good or bad.
Well, they were very, very spiritual people in that respect. And like the weighing the heart with a feather and so on. They were very moralistic, too, in some ways. Pharaoh, of course, was considered a god, too. And so all of these things, they had certain ceremonies, rituals, actually, that were attached to these things, especially the rituals of Anubis, which had to do with the rituals of funeral type stuff, the funerary stuff that they did, and the preparation of bodies and the way they handled those, the parts of the bodies that they took out. The list goes on and on. They were very astute, very particular with how they did a lot of this stuff. And like I say, it had a lot of magical connection to them as well, for them. And they used the rituals, they used the certain ceremonies, they used the certain spices and all the different chemicals and all the different things, the tools that they used. And all of this were connected to their very interesting spiritual outlook on life.
Wow, straight up mind-boggling. And that's what I mean about how there is definitely some different aspects. I mean, like you were saying, and you're going to continue to tell us about the werewolves, but then also about how these things are very physical and have been here before just recently. Oh, so cool, but sad that we're losing ice like this. The majority of our science team right now is trying to figure this out too, and I will send it to you as well so that way you can keep a lookout for it. But they have found the head of a 18,000-year-old jet midnight black. They don't know if it's a wolf puppet canine, some sort of hybrid, and it's got vampire-like elongated fangs hanging down, okay? They have other samples of wolf pups and other samples of more modern-day dogs that have been frozen, and their fur is still the same color. And they have no reason to believe this fur was changed in any way because you can see the snout perfectly, the nose still. This thing is very well preserved. It wouldn't be this preserved if there was something that would have destroyed the coloration of it. And I am very optimistic that this is a very big step forward into the Dogman thing because it looks identical to what some people say with the midnight black and like the hanging down vampire fangs. So we have the occult type things like you were saying where people were changing and such, but until they're able to do more studies on this and either figure out whether it is domesticated or a wild wolf or some sort of canine, this thing is flesh and blood and had no sort of occult activity whatsoever. So it's so interesting because now we're starting to really be able to show the differences, but gather information.
It's funny you should bring up the vampire because there is a distinct connection with vampires and werewolves. I mean, it's not just the Hollywood thing. In folklore and in the ancient annals of a lot of different civilizations, they talk about this distinct connection. Look at the Vorvalica of Greece. It is considered to be a wolf spirit, yet it acts very much like a vampire in the way that it does. It takes life away from people, very much like a sort of psychic vampire or an energy vampire would do. The Vorvalica is a fascinating study, And you have that in parts of Romania as well, and Serbia, where they believe that these things are very much connected. Take a look at the old Dracula thing that Bram Stoker, who I recently taught with his great grandnephew on my show. The Dracula connection with the wolf is very distinct. It's talked about very much in the book, where Dracula turns into a wolf. And if you can turn into a wolf, that, my friend, makes you very much like a werewolf in that respect. But vampires are supposed to be able to do this too. And here's the interesting connection between the werewolf and the vampire. You've got to remember one thing. In their forms, the way they are truly immortal in that respect. And I think if these beings existed thousands of years ago in certain civilizations and cultures of the world, they were venerated very much like gods in a certain extent. And that's why you have so much cinephilia throughout the world. These stories and tales of dog-headed men and civilizations of dog-headed men, tribes of them, in the mountains of India, and on an island in Greece. It goes on and on and on. It's a worldwide thing. Why is that? Because there are, I think, some definite clues in our culture and folklore pointing to the fact that these things did truly exist in some form or another.
That is, again, some more mind-blowing stuff. And dang, you were telling me before we started recording, too, that you had just been recently diving into a case. And if you'd like to talk about that, I want to throw the mic right back to you, brother.
Yeah, I have a paranormal consulting service, and people come to me with their stories, their concerns, things they want to know. And recently, a few weeks back, I had a young lady get in touch with me, and she told me a very interesting incident that happened with her and her boyfriend. They had been to the movies that night and were on the way back home. And as luck would have it, they ran out of gas. Well, luckily, though, they were very, very close, like maybe a quarter, not even a quarter of a mile away from a gas station. As a matter of fact, where they were parked on the side of the road, she could see the gas station. It wasn't that far away. So the boyfriend says, "Look, I'm just going to run up here, get a gallon of gas, to get us up to the gas station, and we'll fill the car up and we'll go home." Okay. So she said she would wait in the car and wait on him. Now, the car they had was a Nissan Pathfinder. Okay. Very much like an SUV, if you're familiar with that. And she had told me, said it was, since this had happened a few weeks ago, it was early fall, and she had the windows down, and her boyfriend left the key in the ignition in case she wanted to play the radio or something. She could see him walk up to, and he took a flashlight and walked up. It was night, and she could see him walk up to the gas station and start putting gas in the gas can. But about that time, she heard something at the back of the car, and said she looked in the rear view mirror. Now the Pathfinder, I think, it's got mirrors on the side, and she looked in the side mirror and said she saw something, silhouette of something, and it crouched down and looked in the mirror, the back window there of the Nissan, and said it kind of looked in the back. When it did, she said she could see like it was like a great big dog or a wolf-like thing, and it had glowing red eyes. And said it looked in at her, and then it raised back up and pushed down on the vehicle. And she felt it move, and said that when it did that, when it raised up, she could see actually, if I can describe it to you, one of these red checkered shirts, like, the lumberjack shirts that you see, the outdoors people wear, like the red checkered. She could see it on its body, but it was torn, it was ragged. And said that the thing started to walk around the side, and about that time, her boyfriend's flashlight hit the front of the car because he was coming back with the gas. And said she looked back again, and it went around on the other side and off into the bushes and the woods that were on the side of the road. We're kind of in a rural place, and it scared her real bad. She said that, and then it would scare anybody in that kind of a situation. But she said what struck her so much at all was those glowing red eyes. She said they weren't glowing like flashlights or anything, but they were very vivid red that had sort of a glow to them. And she felt the thing was very malevolent, absolutely. And she said that she told her boyfriend what happened. He took the flashlight and looked around. He said he saw something when he walked up, but he thought it might have been a deer. He scared a deer or something else. Like I say, it was a rather rural area. And they were very close to a cemetery that was down the road from where this took place. He thought it might have been a deer or something in the bushes. He didn't really, think about anything like a werewolf or anything like that. But when I heard that description, that's the one thing that struck me. That was definitely probably a werewolf, without a doubt. And I told her on the phone that we were consulting on the phone. I told her, I said, you were absolutely incredibly lucky, because if that truly was a werewolf, then I think it was, they don't usually let you go like that. I said, somebody was looking out for you, definitely, because once they get on your trail, they are maniacal. They will not stop until they tear you into pieces. And it's very, very seldom they will ever turn you loose and let you go like that. I think they were both very incredibly lucky that night, without a doubt.
Yep, that is definitely straight up nightmare fuel right there for sure. And wow, thanks for sharing right there. Do you think the cynocephali were straight up always in that form? Or do you think potentially they would have been chilling with, say, obviously not the term skinwalker, but I mean, there is that tale from, I believe it's the 8th volume of the Roman Encyclopedia, where they speak about these supposed men and women that were able to shapeshift. And after I don't know how many years, they were more or less forced out and up to the mountains, where they were said to have gone and lived with the cynocephali. So the reason I'm asking that is, do you think they would have allowed them to come live with them, or do you think that that's something that might occur with the cynocephali as well?
What's the possibility? I don't think they died out completely. I think some of these things may have gone underground to get away from mankind, to hide themselves, and maybe in cave systems or stuff like that. Some of that might be part of it too. But if these things did exist like they once did alongside of mankind, somebody didn't just flip a switch and they all disappeared at one time. I think there definitely may be pockets of them still in the world, and probably some of the uncharted areas of the world that they still exist in. Maybe even on some islands.
Yeah, that's some great stuff right there for sure. And I definitely think that the whole underground aspect is very much at play, because that is where they were said to dwell. Also caves, which we don't know much about that, and caves lead to underground areas, and we do know in every culture that speaks about them, whether it's Asian cultures, whether it's Native American cultures, whether it's the Greek, the Romans, whether it's India, whether it's the Aztecs, whether it's the Africans, the very similar aspect in all those is the caves and being underground. So there's a lot of different variants, but they all speak about the caves and the underground. And even recently, I was introduced to I believe there's still remnants of this tribe around, but the time frame that it was told at was pre or right around the time frame where modern settlers came in and pushed this tribe out of their land in Canada. I don't know the most, but I do know Canada, I believe, has given a lot of the indigenous land back, whereas here we haven't so much. But either way, they spoke about a dog-headed tribe of people that lived underneath the ground in burrows and dens, and they weren't really considered good or evil, pretty much the same type of attitude that the cynocephali seem to have, where they would just do as they desired. Their judgment of good and evil is not in the same realm as what people might consider, which is why Alexander the Great had to fight against them and with them, because obviously they chose to side on different terms numerous times. So it's very interesting right there, because I mean they're all speaking about that and the caves and things. So that's definitely a big aspect of what's occurring. And man, I hope I can blow your mind like you always blow ours. I wish people out there, and I hope people out there, start to realize we don't need a land bridge for animal species to travel to different areas. Wait, what do you mean, Star Fox? If something's not frozen or connected, there's no way they can't get up here. Sure they can. What do you mean? Well, it's a proven scientific aspect, and there is plenty of data to support this. Earth is based in layers. I mean, it's there. Why do you think there's cave systems and you can go underneath and only 10% of those reconnect to the surface and they go deeper down? Yes, it's boom. There you go. No one needs any more evidence than that. It's there. Read about it. Look at it. I don't encourage you to go explore yourself, because caves, unless you are really, active and properly trained, can be very dangerous. But what I'm trying to get at is you could, in theory, because no one knows, no one's been down there, go into a cave on the Appalachian Trail in Maine and then pop up somewhere in California. Can't say it couldn't occur.
I've done a lot of caving in my time, and it is another world, another existence when you go down beneath the ground. And I think, without a doubt, that there is a strong connection to a lot of this stuff, to underground cave systems. There have been rumors for many, many years, for many centuries, that there is a honeycomb worldwide web of underground tunnels that lead under continents and even oceans that go into other continents and hemispheres. The stories are very vivid in that, and I think there is a distinct connection with a lot of this stuff. Look at the giants. Look at the pale crawlers that people supposedly see. A lot of this stuff, even Bigfoot, is connected to cave systems. The cave system key to all of this, I think, is that underground world beneath us.
Right. And just to add a little bit more to it, to be like, whoa, someone's going to be like, hey, Star Fox, so, okay, Dinopithecus, you think that's still kicking around? Why? Well, only 1,000 years ago, it was in southern Africa still, so that's a big inclination. But, okay, why do I think it's kicking around here in North America? All right, well, other animals got up here. Why would they not move as well? But, okay, no more land bridge. Well, again, I encourage anyone to look this up. There are people that go diving, right? And you go into an underground cave underneath the ocean, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And as you're going through this cave, well, if you're lucky, you might find Jack Sparrow's treasure when you come up. But most people don't. But when you come up, you then start walking on land and can continue going deeper and deeper into this cave that doesn't go back under the water.
Nice.
Yes. What makes anybody think that a Dinopithecus couldn't enter a cave in Africa and then travel completely underneath the ocean and pop up in North America? Wait, Star Fox, that doesn't happen. Yes, it does. Down in Boston, we actually made a portion of our highway that goes underneath the bay. Okay, it was already a cave system, more or less, that we just burrowed into and then made it a spot where we can drive underneath it now. So right there is an example of where you were able to go into something that goes underneath water and comes up into a different area. So I really don't think it's far-fetched to think that something could, especially if it enjoys cave systems, like cave hyenas and baboons. And dude, the short-faced cave bear spent 90% of its life in the cave. Okay, it would come out and get its food and go back and chill and walk all around these caves. So when people are like, well, where are all the remains? Dude, cave bears, man, when they were going to become deceased, would go really deep back into the caves as well. So, man, it's just really interesting, dude.
Absolutely. You have a lot of that in folklore, where things grab you, kidnap you, and take you into the cave systems. Look at the fairies that are taught about in Celtic folklore, Where is their kingdom? Underground in the caves. The list goes on and on. The trolls are supposedly will take you down into their cave systems and unalive you and have you for dinner. That's the way they operate. And the list goes on and on. And of course, certain animals live in caves, just like you mentioned, bears. Certain other animals, certain primates have been known to live in caves. So the list is very long on this. And the cave systems are a distinct part of this world that we have for too long ignored, I think, to our own problems in that respect, because if we cut off half of this world and ignore it, that's not good.
Yep, that is very, very true, my friend. And before we start, unfortunately for the audience, starting to close down the Midnight Society's book for the night, do you have anything else you would like to touch base on or speak about for the evening, my friend?
Well, you definitely have anything you want to talk about like this, or if you want to share any experiences, please do so with me and Star Fox here or somebody like that. Don't keep it to yourself. You need to share this. You need to get this information out. Because the more we talk about these things, the more we correlate this evidence and this information, the better we'll all be in the end for it. So if you have any experiences, please come forward and share them with us. Without a doubt, we will be waiting to hear them and listen to them.
Yes, this is some excellent stuff right here. And before I let you go, this is not really necessarily Dogman related, but it's still lore related. And I'm still fascinated by this, where this came up with, because the Greeks and Romans were very straightforward, but then they did have their gods and such, and some things that I guess modern day science could say were a little bit abstract and such. But centaurs and have the human upper body, is that what it is? The centaurs?
That's true. And, even with the ancient Egyptians, the Sumerians, the list goes on and on. They have a lot of hybrid belief systems. A lot of this hybrid stuff goes through many different cultures, and I think there's a distinct reason for this. It is sort of going outside the laws of nature, and that's what struck them as being so very strange for you to have a hybrid animal like this. But this is nothing new. This goes back thousands of years, like you mentioned, to the myths and legends of Greece and Rome. And even some of the legends of the Norse and the Vikings talk about hybrid creatures. So I think that mankind, at one time or another, somewhere encountered something like that. Very much like the Dogman that we talk about and other creatures. They are hybrids. This does not occur naturally in nature. So what we're talking about, my friend, is the very most unnatural of unnatural things.
Isn't that gnarly? And actually, as we were just talking about that, it made me think that, well, when the SS and Heinrich Himmler and all the dirty stashes, right-hand people were doing all their occult ceremonies at Hauschka Castle and all these other supposed supernatural areas, and every single one of their documentations, when they did supposedly summon something, it reeked of sulfur, had amber red eyes, and every single beast that would be bipedal and not considered a shadow figure or such like that was always half human and half animal. Makes me wonder, were the centaurs and such, and maybe the cynocephali and all that, were they all just, are they demonic? I mean, I'm not saying they are, but why are all things supposedly in the occult books that are summoned that are demonic are half animal, half human, like the goat man and such? It's interesting. I mean, are those things all necessarily potentially occult? I mean, it's not just modern day societies. I mean, the Druids and such, yeah, they have their good people, but they also speak of shape shifting and such. So maybe you had your sinister ones back then, and just because it wasn't in modern day times, if you're summoning something, whether you're summoning it in 2024, or you're summoning it back in the Druid times, if it's demonic, it's demonic. So it would still be an animal type entity. Food for thought, I guess.
Well, it's a possibility that, you've got to always look at this. There is a possibility of this conjuring going on, where these people can call forth these dark entities through other dimensional aspects and gateways. If you encounter something like this young lady did with these glowing red eyes, you are definitely usually dealing with something of a more demonic nature. And it's never a good idea to make eye contact with anything like that, because it can lead to some very bad stuff later on. So anyway, these things can be demonic, and the demonic works with hybriding stuff. That's one of the things they do. They put together these things, and it could be that some of these things are demonic. I'm not saying they all are, but some of them definitely are, and I think some are conjured up. People are doing these things. They're calling forth this darkness through these spiritual gateways. But you may also have let me say this, there is a certain magic to this planet that we're living on here, okay? It has a sort of an earth magic to it. Strange things happen with it. Strange things have always happened that way. And that might be a part of the sort of dark side of our planet. I look upon this planet as being almost like a living being. It has, I think, a spirit to it as well. And there may be, with all spirits, you have a dark and you have a light side. The light side of the earth, we may see the bluebirds flying around and the butterflies and all that's beautiful and all that. But yes, there may also be a dark side to this world as well.
Wow, I couldn't agree more, my friend. And that's a really great way to pretty much wrap this up, because yes, Dennis is a bi-weekly host. So, I mean, he'll be back here very soon and have some more information. And well, that's the point of a podcast. I mean, yes, we got to get the information out there, but need everybody to come back for the next episode, right? So you will have to wait and see what Dennis is going to find out with the case he's working on. And, well, yes, what other knowledge I can plow into my brain, too. So I do appreciate you stopping in tonight, like always, man, and hanging out with us for sure.
Well, thank you. Anytime. It's always a pleasure.
If you did make it this far tonight in the episode, you truly are a legend. And if you do enjoy my content, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. And remember, there are things that go bump in the night.